this is a hinge year. This is a year that lots of things hinge on. It's setting up the energy for the next while because all these outer planets will be getting locked in. So everyone just hold on to your assets.
Hold on to your assets.
That's right.
Just squeeze them so hard they cry. Welcome to the Feminine Alchemy Podcast, where we explore the truth about the feminine, the peaceful, the wild, and the visceral. I'm your host, J.N. Behringer, joined by my co-hosts, Julie Dean Richards and Kaylee Rose. Each week, we explore the deep mysteries of the feminine and help listeners apply them to their daily lives in a practical way. Join us to unlock the hidden wisdoms your soul has been waiting for. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Feminine Alchemy. I'm Jan, and I've got Julie Dean Richards here with me. Say hello.
Hello, everyone.
We are doing a fantastic end of the year forecast for 2026. And yes, it's the end of 2025 if you're listening to this at some other time. And we every year like to do an astrological forecast for the coming year, see what energies are coming up for us, and get that way you can get kind of a sense of how to strategize and what to expect. So, you ready to get into it, Julie?
Let's do it.
All right. So, the first thing we're going to do, we're going to do two parts here. The first thing we're going to do is have an overview of the entire year, some major transits. Now, we're not including Mercury retrogrades in this because usually we interpret those as we go along throughout the year, and they happen 3 times a year, sometimes 4. So we're not going to worry about those, but we are going to give you an oversight of the major players this year. So, Julie, what is the biggest thing that's happening astrologically this year?
Yeah, so the biggest thing that's happening astrologically is that all these planets that have been kind of playing on the edge, dipping in, dipping out of signs, all these outer planets, they are now going to be fully locked into their places for the next, some of them 3 years, most of them 6 to 12 years. I've been kind of feeling like this is a hinge year. This is a year that lots of things hinge on. It's setting up the energy for the next while because all these outer planets will be where they are for a while. So like Pluto has been locked into Aquarius now. So we've talked a lot about that. But the other 3 that are getting locked in is Neptune, which is going into Aries and will be there for like 12 years. And then we've got Uranus, which will be locked into Gemini, and it will be there for 6 to 8 years. And then we have Saturn, and Saturn will be going also into Aries, and it will be locked in there for the next 3 years. All of these energies, they've been shifting back and forth, and we felt some of them last year. But this year, we're going to feel them lock into place. We're going to kind of see fully what they mean, how they feel for us this year. So we thought we would talk a little bit about them again, even though we talked a little bit last year. We'll talk a little bit about them this year and their energies locking into place. So where do you want to start, Jan?
Yeah, I actually want to start with, if you want a detailed outline of what each outer planet in its new sign can look and feel like, I would definitely recommend you go back to last year's forecast because we went really in depth there. And I think it was apropos. I think that a lot of people experienced this sort of one foot on one side of the world, one foot on the other side of the world, and sort of feeling like you got to get your sea legs all year long. I don't know anyone personally who hasn't felt that way. And I also have seen a lot of that sort of like in social media circles as well. There's a lot of change. There was a lot of shifting. There was a lot of things falling apart that you thought were working. So definitely go back and check that out. But locking that stuff into place is going to more solidify what it is that we were learning this past year. But let's do a little baby overview for each planet.
Sounds good. Should we start with the furthest out? We'll start with Neptune.
We'll start with Neptune.
Okay, cool. Neptune is going to be going into Aries for real this year. I believe the date on that is February 26th. It's the first one to really lock into place. I guess it and Saturn both go in during February. So those 2 are the big ones. Neptune is all about ideals, fantasy, illusion, spirituality. A lot of it is like the framework or like the rose colored glasses we see the world through. It kind of has this misty quality to it. And so going into Aries, which is a fire sign, the two sometimes clash. They don't have like the best time together. Oftentimes, what we see with Neptune and Aries, and kind of what we have seen, is really being fiery about our ideals. Aries is really focused on the self. As a fire sign, fire tends to think that it's right. It likes to lead the way, and it's a trailblazer. And Aries has this very pioneering energy. And so the two together are kind of like pioneering your ideals, fighting for your ideals, focusing on and feeling, I have said multiple times, I think everybody is going to feel like they're quote unquote right this year. Like everyone's going to think that they know best this year. But with that misty Neptune, something I would say is just being cautious, that knowing that you can't actually see the full picture, even if you think you can see the full picture, because everybody has some mist over their eyes. And we often see this. Saturn and Neptune have been chasing each other for a while, and Saturn and Neptune will continue to chase each other this year. And we do see a lot of, I don't really love the word like misinformation. That's like not my favorite word, but we see a lot of stuff that turns out not to be real that people think is real. Like that happens often, or things that are not real then become real later because they thought they were real. So I would say everyone be cautious about thinking that we're right all the time. But this is definitely a time where and we've seen in the past where people really stick to their pioneering ideals and are really fighting for what they believe is true. That's something you can see throughout all of it, and that people are ready to take that first step and be fiery about it. Any thoughts you have about this, Jan?
I'm gonna steer away from the inciting of war concept because it's just very much like I can see that playing out in that manner because Aries does rule war, and it's a spiritual war, right? That we're talking about. If we're talking about war, it's not necessarily about reality. It's about theory. It's about spirituality. So it makes sense. But I was also going to say this is a year or a time frame. It's the next 12 years of embodied creativity. Neptune rules creative pursuits. What Julie was saying is there's a fashion piece here because it's what is your creativity on your body? How does that manifest on your body? That's fashion. There's other ways too. It might be I'm going to do creative ways of taking care of myself, or maybe I'm going to start making my own spiritually created salt baths or something like that. Those kinds of things are super in alignment with these energies as well. And because we have Saturn in the mix, it lends itself well to like really highly structuring it. So maybe it's structured through a business, or maybe you're like finally able to schedule your self care when you couldn't before. There's going to be a lot going on there too. So, do you want to talk about fashion real quick? Because I just think this is so interesting.
Yeah, let's talk about fashion. I love that. And one thing I forgot to say, which you totally reminded me of, I said this last year also, but I do think Neptune and Aries is very much your spiritual or your thoughts coming to reality very quickly. And exactly like you said, embodying spirituality, creativity, your dreams, embodying fantasy, all that kind of stuff is totally part of it, which a big part of that is fashion. So, Neptune, because of its connection to artistry, often we can see things like music trends, fashion trends, depending on where Neptune is. This year, Neptune and Aries with Saturn, I would say that kind of flavor of the way that we dress over the next 12 years, because we've been in a wave for the past 12 years, and now I think in the next few years, fashion will kind of drastically change. And then my thought on that is, Aries is very much like this kind of stripped down, no frills energy. And so, especially with Saturn in the first part of that, I would say, maybe we're seeing a lot more businessy kind of dress, a lot more stripped down kind of dress. Maybe even Aries has a lot to do with the body. So maybe like athleisure wear continuing in popularity, and kind of mixing business and athleisure together would be something I could see. Also, Aries has to do with the head. So maybe we will do like more stuff with hats and things you put on your head during this time. I think that could be a really cool application of this. And then we may, as far as music has gone, in the Pisces era, that's when we kind of went through all this like soft techno-y, like our music kind of became this more ethereal. And I'm wondering if we're gonna go more rock again now that we're back with Aries. Anything you want to say, Jan?
I love it. I think we have in general a lot of futuristic, alienistic influences. So I could totally see this like bodysuit with some crazy hat running going down the runway, right? Like this, but just something very like theoretically futuristic. Of course, we are always in the future because every day is the future of yesterday. But classical futuristic things. Yeah, we have been doing a lot of like that hippie garb has really come to the forefront. I think that's probably going to go away sadly because I love that. It's my favorite.
Maybe we will get, because Aries is the warrior, maybe the outfits will be more warrior esque, you know?
I was thinking that too. Like, really want some sort of vest made of leather, but not like suede, like braided leather that has all these pockets and stuff that I could go to war with. That I'm not actually going to go to war with because I'm too squeamish for that. So fun. All right, what's the next planet to get settled in its final, not final, but final for the next few years location?
Well, we'll talk about Saturn because I think it'll be pretty quick. Saturn moves through signs about every 3 years. We've been feeling that with Saturn and Aries. A lot of feeling around Saturn and Aries is like everyone has to take responsibility for themselves. Like that's a very Saturnian. And Saturn, he plays the role of the karmic balancer and the reap what you sow kind of a deal. And so just knowing that what you put out there will come back to you probably rather quickly now that Saturn is in Aries, because fire is just faster than water. So could be that we're seeing a lot of ricochet with that, taking personal responsibility, more getting serious about what you're pioneering, right? Like serious about yourself, serious about where you're going, serious about all those things. I've looked back at the last few times Saturn was in Aries. There is a lot of reckoning that happens, responsibility that comes back around. So like I'll just give one example. Like this is like the Clinton impeachment era was the last time, and also OJ Simpson, he did the civil trial last time. And so he ended up having to pay out all those millions of dollars, even though in the criminal trial, he was claimed not guilty. So things coming back around, can't get away with those things, but also just getting serious about yourself, your body, serious about your manifestations, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, anytime I see either Saturn or Capricorn interact with either Aries or Mars, I think of Energizer Bunny energy. So, and it's actually reflected on the other side as well because we start out the year with Mars in Capricorn, spoiler alert for later. But it really highlights there's a lot that's going to be moving very quickly, and either you're on the boat or you're off the boat. So you got to make a decision. You can't just be like, waffling, I'll have another opportunity. This is the year of get it done now, jump on, or choose not to. But do not think about it too long. Just take action.
Yeah, there's no waffling, and everything is shifting into air and fire. So like everything will permanently by the end of this year pretty much be in air and fire. And we'll talk about the eclipses because they're the only things that are kind of in the middle, but they're shifting into air and fire too, which is just much faster than water and earth. Lacey Phillips said this, and I think it's true, which is everything's speeding up and there's just not time for you, like Jan said, to waffle. Just go for it. And which is a very Aries energy. Just go for it. Just do it. Very, very Aries. So I think that's a good overview for Saturn.
Yeah, now's your last chance to like overthink stuff and not do it. So enjoy that. What's the next one that's moving into its spot?
So Uranus is going to be our last planet that's really locking in this year. So Uranus is going to be in Gemini. It's been in Taurus for a while, so lots of shifts we've had and money and family and all of those lovely things, assets. And now we're shifting into new ideas, new thoughts. So Uranus is very good at shaken stuff up. Its job is to break things down, to rebuild them. Uranus is like the consummate surprise. You can't guess. I always think about Uranus as like the tower card in the tarot. It like builds you back up, but Uranus rules your nervous system and your electrical system and your body. So it's kind of like lightning, and it's also over authenticity. Uranus is like, you can't be fake with me. You have to be yourself or else I'll knock everything away from you. So that's kind of the energy, and paired with Gemini, which is very much about asking questions, talking, looking at new ideas, having duality. We will see with Uranus shifting into that, of course, innovation in technology, innovation in communication. We'll see lots of, because Uranus is very innovative. So we're going to be breaking up a lot of communicative systems. To me, this speaks again of that technology piece, changing up social media stuff, changing up what we see, new ways to advertise, all of that. Lots of wars on ideas. And maybe I shouldn't use the word war, but lots of differing ideas, lots of duality in our ideas. And again, this can lead to us thinking we're right. And we need to be willing to turn the stone over and ask the question about the other side. And that's what it's asking us to do. We see with Uranus and Gemini a lot of like things breaking up and then coming back together in a new way. So like this was part of the Revolutionary War was one of the times that Uranus was in there. So lots of new ideas coming through, breaking down like from a monarchy to giving it to the people. We do see a lot of that energy of decentralization, probably in technology and communication and those pieces. But lots of cool thoughts, probably lots of things about aliens. I think probably. What do you think, Jan?
Uranus does rule aliens, that's true. And AI, right? And what do we have going on in the sign it rules is we have Pluto in there too. So there's a lot of echoing of breaking things up, right? Because that's Pluto's job is to break things up. Pluto breaks things up in more of a watch it burn kind of way. Uranus is just like, oh, we're just teleporting. So that's why it's so surprising because you don't even see it coming. Sometimes Pluto stuff or scorpionic themes can be surprising, but also like, okay, this feels like a natural end. With Uranus stuff, it can be very jarring because you just don't see it coming. So even the idea of having an astrological prediction of what could be coming, like future me is only gonna know. Present me can't possibly know because we're not there yet. So I want to add that caveat. Um, but Gemini, Uranus Gemini, I think we talked at length last year about this. So, but Julie did mention a couple of the previous times. Every time Uranus has been in Gemini that we have been aware of Uranus in existence, there has been some kind of a war. And so we're not saying that's the thing to do, but our current state of existence probably lends itself to verbal electronic wars, anyways. It's not about like necessarily bloodshed. So, what I would encourage everybody to do is to protect your mentality, protect your thought process and your authenticity in how you think about things rather than trying to people please your thought process to everybody else.
I think that's a really good rounding out. And you know what came to me in this was the fight from trying to keep technology from becoming a technocracy, like a mass, right? And keep it more decentralized to the people, more Aquarian than Leo-ish, I would say. So rather than making a monarchy, trying to break that technology down. And that's part of, like you said, what could be the war that we're in. But a lot of what I have seen looking back is a lot of these are like these new ideas or like big ideas that come out that are so radical or so different that often is what causes controversy in these times. And so we don't need to be afraid of our authenticity. But I think what Jayanne said, and especially with all this action in Aries, I always just want to warn people again, nobody is right. Everybody thinks they're right. No one is 100% right. I know you might hate to hear that, but everybody has pieces because air and fire is more cognitive. There's just an ego piece. Being careful about our egos. Just everyone watch your ego. Even if you don't think you have an ego, everyone has an ego. So that's what I'd
But
say.
Julie, I'm always right. And I have no ego. I just deleted my ego. It's gone.
That's right. That's right. Except for Jayanne. She's the only one who gets out of this. Everyone else just try to be like Gemini and ask the questions and see things from the other side too.
Exactly. No, I really do think that nuance is of utmost importance and holding space for nuance in all of this. And the other thing is, with all this air and fire, there is going to be a deep need for all of us to connect more with the earth and water elements, however that means to you. Air and fire together can literally just like spin itself up so fast. So go outside.
Amen. But Jupiter's also going into a fire sign. Surprise, surprise. Jupiter is in Cancer right now. And it's been like loving being there because that's Jupiter's favorite place. So we'll still have for the first half of the year kind of that Jupiterian generosity. It is expanding, finding your tribe, and it will still kind of have that spiritual hold and that higher learning hold. But then it will shift into Leo. And when it shifts into Leo, Jupiter in Leo is much more like pizzazz. Look at me. I'm great. It's sparkly. It's expression. It's way more expressionate because Jupiter is all about expanding things. And Leo loves this shining and this performance and all these pieces. So we're expanding those, expanding the way that we perform, expanding the way that we shine, expanding the way that we lead. So just touching on that for Jupiter and Leo.
And then Venus will go retrograde at the end of the year, not the end, towards the latter part of the year, so in October. And it'll be retrograde through Scorpio and then Libra, which Venus rules Libra traditionally. So she'll be pretty, just be reviewing some of that stuff. But the Scorpio is going to be probably pretty deep work around love, around money, around what you think is valuable in your self worth. Since Venus also rules Taurus, having Venus in Scorpio is going to be like 3 magnifying glasses to your own self worth. So don't get too wrapped up in that per se. Take what you need, move on, accept yourself, give yourself that grace that you need there.
Yeah, definitely. I would say probably Venus and Scorpio will be a lot of power dynamics. Like, what are your power dynamics in your relationships with money? What is your power struggle with money? And then as we go back and Venus and Libra will be again balancing your relationships, probably balancing, trying to see what's out of balance with your relationships, even your relationship to money and worth. What's out of balance there? How do we correct that? So, everyone just hold on to your assets in the fall.
Mm-hmm. And a triple dose of self love.
That's right. Triple dose self love, 100%.
And hold on to your assets.
That's right.
Just squeeze them
Just
so hard they
squeeze them
cry.
so hard. But if you prep yourself well for it, like if you prep yourself with self love and focusing on having good relationships before then, hopefully the retrograde will not be too intense.
Yeah. Yeah. That's usually how that works. When you do the healing work and if you proactively do healing work, retrograde time frames, eclipse portals, full moons, they're not quite as intense. You'll get the insight you need without the pain.
Yes, it won't be as painful. Last Venus retrograde for me this last year was like we're trying to sell our house. I mean, we did everything at the wrong time. So, but it did make things take forever. And that's just sometimes the truth of it is retrogrades just make things take forever. So, I don't know if you're thinking about selling a house. No, I'm just kidding. You can sell it whenever.
Don't wait until
Don't
October.
wait till
Don't
October
do it.
because it starts October 3rd. Oh, the last thing we should say before we move to the chart is we're going to have weird eclipses this year and early eclipses this year. So, what did we say? February 17th. Woo, that's so
Yeah.
early.
Super early, especially compared to last year, which I think was the March 27th. So it really jumped this year. Before that, it only jumped like a week. And the solar eclipse is in Aquarius,
Mhm.
right? So that's different too.
Mhm. Yeah, and then but they're kind of halfy. So, like, usually when we have eclipses, and you can listen to our other episodes, we'll do more on this. We're just going over it quickly, but you usually have them in the signs across from each other. So, like, usually it'd be Aquarius and Leo together, like it's been Pisces and Virgo. But because we're kind of in this transitionary state, we'll have the Aquarius eclipse, and it will be, and the other side of the eclipse portal will be Virgo instead of Leo.
So the solar eclipse will be in Aquarius, and then the lunar eclipse will be in Virgo.
Yep, and then the next one,
Yeah.
which is in August, or no,
Yeah.
oh, it is. Wow, they're so far apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
August 12th will be the next set, August 12th to the 28th, and that will be Leo. So we'll start the eclipse again in Leo, and it'll be solar, and then we will end that eclipse in Pisces, and that will be the lunar eclipse. So we're kind of shifting energies from this kind of what we've talked about, Pisces and Virgo a lot, but from this energy of, purification and organization coming into the spiritual realm. And now we're kind of shifting into like these Aquarian themes of, what the collective, focusing on the service, freedom, what is, what's very authentic to you. And, but we're still like in the middle of that transition.
And one other thing I will say about this is when you have these types of eclipses, the signs don't really get each other. So it'll feel like the portal has like a bend in the middle and it seems like it's going one way and then it goes a totally different way. And it's going to seem very confusing. And that's normal. I'm sorry.
It is. It's definitely normal. You might be like, this is not usually what my eclipse portals are like. And it's like, yes, it's because it's in the middle of everything. Trust me. It's like air is trying to work with earth and fire is trying to work with water, and they just don't get each other very well.
Let's talk about the chart of the year.
Okay, so the chart that we took, the chart of the year, is at midnight on January 1st. So, just like a solar return or anything else, the idea is the first breath of the year, when the clock strikes midnight on January 1, will be that first breath, that snapshot. So, this chart is a snapshot of what the year looks like. So, you want to give some highlights, Jan?
Yep. The sun is in Capricorn as expected. That would be weird if I said something else. So we're on the right page. The moon is in Gemini. So that's on our way to a full moon, right? And then the rising sign is at 1 degree Libra.
So we have a lot. So the sun will always be in Capricorn. So we don't really need to focus on it quite as much because it will just always be there. It's kind of rooted. But what is interesting about the Capricorn placements here is that there are a lot of them. So Juno is in Capricorn at that 0 degree placement. And then we also have Venus and Mars. We have three personal planets in
And they're
Capricorn.
conjunct the sun
Both are conjunct the
too.
sun, yep, and then we have Juno hanging out there, and Vesta. We have Vesta and Juno both hanging out there. So, for us, the asteroids matter, right? They we
Mm-hmm.
we like them. So, there is a lot of this Capricornian energy of building. We also see that reflected in the moon phase here, because as the moon is going to become full, the energy is building, building, building until it reaches the peak of the full moon, and then it starts to descend. And so we're still on our way to building. And I think that's a good way to sum up this year in many ways, is like this year is, like I said, a hinge year. It's building the energy. The energy is continuing to build. It is a birth in its own way, but birth is also hard. Like when you're like a duck trying to get out of the shell has to fight a lot to get out of that shell, or like even a baby, right? Babies get squeezed through this tube and they come out the other side, and it's a big work to be born. And so even though this energy is building, that's kind of what it feels like. We're in that tunnel and we're building up all of this so we can shoot out. At least that's what it looks like to me. We're still not seeing the full picture, but we're continuing to build our castle.
I love that you used a birth analogy because with the presence of Mars and Venus conjunct the sun, it is very much a coming together of masculine and feminine, i.e., birth right at the new year. And that's in Capricorn, right? There's something brand new that's coming to life, like legit new life. With the Mars in Capricorn, again, we have that reflected Energizer bunny. So I like to think of Mars in Capricorn as sort of like you're blowing up a highly structured balloon. So Mars is that initiator, that like really capable growth factor. But Mars by itself will fizzle out and go on to something else. When you pair it with Capricorn, it starts to create something like a Jupiterian energy, but it's just very expanded and it's very structured. So it lasts for a really long time and it's very sustainable, but it's also, it got there quickly. So again, get on or get off the train. Do not waffle starting on the first. And then all of those kind of self worth pieces are going to be a major player regardless of who you are and when you are. What are the things that I value? What are the things that are important to me? What are my relationships look like? How do I solidify those into something sustainable, something that feels good to me, and something that is it's going to be a little bit more structured again because that Capricorn energy with Venus.
If we look at Capricorn like a story, the first third, like the first decan of Capricorn is a lot about
Gotta talk about
gotta talk
decans.
about
Here we are.
decans. The first third has this energy of like surveying the land. So it's really trying to figure out and survey where would be a good place to build. So that's what Venus is doing. And that's what Juno is doing at a very like intense rate. They're surveying what are the good relationships, what are not, what is good to do with my money, what is not, who is a good partner for me. That's the Juno question too. Like who is the good partnership? Where is that partnership coming from? And those support pieces, all of what Jan was talking about with the relationships, I think rings really true. And then the sun and Mars are in that second decan. And the second decan, the second part of Capricorn is the actual pyramid builder, the person who's building up those pyramids. They're in the middle of work. They're working really hard. And so we are working very hard with that Mars, and we're actually making something, exactly what Jan said. Then that Vesta at the end, because Vesta is about like our commitments, like what burns inside of us. What do we want to be so committed to? She is the only one in that third decan, which is like it's called the throne, which is just like the top, the leadership piece. And so I that does speak to me that like whatever we're doing, whatever we're building is going to be based around our inner fire. So base it around your inner fire. Your inner fire needs to be the thing that's in charge this year. Whatever you feel is so sacred to you that you are willing to commit everything to it. That is the thing you've got to hold on to continue to build up what you've got. So, anything else?
I think it's a really good year for people to start building wealth.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, really good, and sort of not just wealth in the traditional sense, but all of the pieces of wealth, and what does it feel like to be, like, feeling rich in every aspect, including relationships, including what is it that I am creating every day that I'm contributing to the world, and how am I compensated for that? All those questions are gonna come up for literally everyone, so you can start now thinking about those things.
For sure. And it's interesting because a lot of this is playing out in the fourth house, and which is your roots. And I think drawing from your roots and your ancestry will help you to know where should I be building. Drawing and doing those pieces will help you to know like where am I rich already that I didn't realize that I was rich. What do you think about that Gemini moon, Jan?
Yeah, so I love what you said about that is just echoing that building because it's on its way to being full, but since well, traditionally the moon rules the fourth house, it's again saying, hey, there's some roots here, and you're going to think about things in a totally different way. But it's Gemini moon is always like a feel think. And so it's really tricky. I find that people with Gemini moons have a really hard time understanding their emotions because they're thinking about them and they need to feel them, but they have to think about them in order to feel them. And it's just this weird cycle of crazy, which cycles of crazy often are tied to Gemini. I didn't say that. So be very conscious of the difference between thoughts and feelings and start to terse them out because when you start to separate them, there's a really important deep unconscious that you're going to be bringing forth as we are building this whatever it is, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it made complete sense. And it's interesting because it's quincux with Venus. And so we've talked about quincunxes before, but when something is quincux, it means that you've got to work out the one side first, and then you can work out the other side. So if you're having trouble with the relation and money piece and the self value piece, then you need to go and feel your emotions. You need to deal with your emotional stuff. You need to deal with your mother wounds, all those pieces that the moon brings, and then the money will be able to come to you. I also think ninth house moon. So lots of thinking about higher learning, lots of thinking about spirituality, lots of this kind of back and forth, like these feelings, spiritual feelings, but I guess we're not just feeling them. Like Jan said, we're thinking them a lot. I also find that Gemini moons need to talk out their feelings a lot. They need to say them and they need a community for them. And so if you're feeling that way this year, you may feel that you need a community that you can go to talk to that you trust. And it may feel like that community is a little farther away because it's in the ninth house, and that might be hard. But also, this is saying you have a direct line to the divine. So talk to the divine about your feelings and it will become clearer to you.
Also, in the ninth house is structured religion. So that might be a place where community could live for you. I love what you said about the quincunx, and I always think of quincunx as stoplight energy.
Mhm.
Go, stop, go, stop. This one, then that one. This one, because if you try to do both, then everything will crash. So think, feel, or reflect on your worth. And if you feel like you're getting stuck somewhere, just go to the other side and put it off till later.
That's right. Just go to the other side. That's right. I love that. The midheaven is in Cancer, that 1 degree of Cancer. So a lot of needing to take care of yourself, needing to nurture yourself, but there is a lot of career energy because it is in the 10th house. So nurturing your career or your reputation. A career is not just like something you get paid money for. Your career is your life path. It's everything that you do. But nurturing that, finding your tribe in that, and I would say like for a lot of people, if you do have a business or something, making sure that you're ultra catering to your people, like who is your tribe, and focus on that rather than trying to please the whole world because Cancer is so rooted. There's a lot of roots here. There's a lot of fourth house Cancerian energy. So, needing to go to the root, there's a lot of this. We need to get to the root. We need to go back to the beginning. We need to feel down into it. So, stop trying to always aspire up. We've talked about this a ton, but what comes to mind is spiraling into your body, spiraling down to the earth instead of always trying to exert everything upward. So, and Jupiter's there too, which expands all that too.
Yeah, and there's Hygeia hanging out only 3 degrees away from the midheaven in Gemini, which, when you listen to our Hygeia episode, it's very much about what are you judging and why? But it's also about where are you taking those teeny little steps day to day to day to day towards that career, towards that emotional connection. Where's your community kind of thing?
Yeah, community is important, I think, for a lot of this. If you don't have a community, expand your community for sure.
Yeah, and probably in the physical realm,
Yes, yes.
not just in the online realm. I think that we've spent a lot of time building community elsewhere, which has been good for expanding our understanding of what kind of people are out there. But what we haven't been good at and we've allowed to kind of drop off is physical world community. And that's why a lot of people feel super unsupported when it comes to real world stuff. I have heard this before and I'll say it out loud. When you are talking about community in the physical world, you are talking about putting up with some irritation stuff where people are going to annoy you and they're going to step on toes and they're going to do what you don't think is the right thing to do. Boundaries are good. It's also, there's a piece where it's like perfection is not the answer. So, as you're doing more community building in the physical realm this next year, do start to keep in mind like, yeah, you can't just shut off your computer when someone annoys you. There are ways to deal with real life people with grace and tact. And there are times to say, yes, I have a boundary towards that. Can we change the subject? And still have a good relationship with that person. So, That was a surprising soapbox I didn't know I was gonna get into.
Very needed. I think also because the ascendant is in Libra, so gotta deal with that. Yeah, definitely still a very relational year because of that ascendant. A lot of the thoughts that we have and us balancing our bodies because that ascendant is about the body. So making sure that we are balancing that, but also that our relationships affect our physical bodies. And that will be very true. So I think everything that Jayanne said is so important. Be careful not to over people please. This could be a year. You could be going back and forth. You could be people pleasing. We can be a diplomat, but making sure that we're being real as well. Because when we're not, when we're in the energy of Libra, that is very people pleasy, then we will not be able to have our physical bodies won't be able to sustain it, I would say, in this chart. And then the other thing I wanted to say is as far as resonant astrology in Libra, with that Juno being in Capricorn, very interesting. Again, having your good foundations, working with your foundations, working to build up your body. And also, there's probably going to be a lot of things about justice, feeling injustice, trying to solve those pieces, working through that for yourself. Hopefully, it will be a good year for the divine feminine because of that, too.
I hope so too. I see a lot of people maybe having troubles with boundaries with people and relationships too, with that Juno and Capricorn. And not trouble, just learning how to do it in a beautiful way. Because and if for some people it might be existing relationships, if for people who are looking for a long-term relationship, just be mindful of, am I being too strict to some of my quote rules around what this person offers or what they have to be? Or am I kind of people pleasing with that too? So it could go either way.
Yeah, I completely agree. Also, though, it could also be sorry, this is a different interpretation. With Juno and that Libra, those two being connected, again, that goes to what you said, Jan, about building wealth too.
That's true. Because Juno has so many faces.
A good year to build wealth and knowing that your finances and the way you deal with them probably will affect you physically. So working on your stress around, money issues, values, and also when it comes to Juno, like the betrayal piece, like just watching out because if we overextend ourselves into people pleasing, then we're more likely to end up like the Hera version of Juno than her true version, which is, to stand for herself and her rights and all of those pieces.
That's a good point. If you find yourself commonly jealous, then maybe you deal with the external situation, but you also deal with the internal side, especially with Juno being at 0 degrees Capricorn. That is always a sign to me that you're in the early stages of learning about that thing, and that building is like even more exponentially important because you're starting like building the foundation. You're digging the holes. You're digging the foundation area for that thing that you're going to grow. So, really, really hone your skills.
Yep. Very, very important. A lot of intensity when we see the 0 degrees. So, this is a very important piece. And I'm sure Kaylee will add more to that when I think she's going to talk about her resonant astrology view of the year. If you have not listened to our Juno episode, it would be a good one to go listen to because she is such a big player in this chart, and listen to Jan's important soapbox about the difference between jealousy and envy and how we can
It's
work with
important.
those because I think those will be really helpful for this year. Especially as you're building back a real community, those are very important to work with because exactly like Jan said, yes, people will annoy you. Yes, they will cause feelings inside of you. You will have feelings about what other people do, and being able to take responsibility for those, being able to release those and recognize those will be very important to having like a real life community.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you want people to know about this year or this year's chart?
The only thing I was thinking about was that series placement. She's in the
Mm,
7th house, right? Yes, conjunct the vertex. So one thing I wanted to say, Ceres in Aries always tells us you need to take care of yourself first. and that when we're dealing with family or abundance or motherhood or any of these things, we need to focus on ourselves first. And with Vertex there, that's like a window. There's a window opening for abundance, but only if you do the things like for yourself. You are willing to pioneer it. I just wanted to mention her real quick. Of course, Chiron is still in Aries. So being cautious about your health, your well-being. We might need to do some healing around partnership, especially committed partnership this year with all of that going on. So continuing to look at that. And then Hygeia, she's in the ninth house. So a lot of stuff with health having to do, and she's opposing Juno, which is interesting. Your thoughts have a lot to do with your health. Your higher learning will help your health and your wholeness and well-being, and making peace with like the relationship part will affect your health. Anything we want to say about the nodes?
I mean, the nodes are going to come into play very strongly when we talk about eclipses. But in general, we're still doing the same nodal path as last year until halfway through the year, and then we'll be switching signs. But yeah, the nodes is really about that, again, that crystallization into reality, right? That's that Pisces Virgo axis is bringing these ethereal thoughts beyond the veil into reality, into current progress, or dissolving them, right? That can go either way. Taking stuff that we're not doing well or not consistent with and just kind of dissolving, let it go. But that basically tells us that's like what our general focus is for the year for everybody. Now again will change as the year goes on. I mean, all of these will change, obviously. It's just that the nodes are such a strong driving factor that when they change, things will change for us too.
I think that that's perfect. I think we're still headed that way. We're still kind of in this search. And some of it is our search is how do we bring the spiritual into our everyday routine? And that sixth house, sacred in the mundane, trying to still figure out how to do those pieces this year. That will still be a big player. The second and the eighth house, we still got Uranus in that eighth house, but we do have the part of fortune also in the eighth house. So again, big money shifts, big value shifts, especially when it comes to like reoccurring revenue, passive income, stocks, inheritances, all those pieces. So, making money tangible for you, right? Like Taurus in the eighth house, tangible and intangible together. That's the big stuff in the chart, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Building legacy, building wealth. It's a big year.
It is a big
It's a
year.
big year.
Yeah, big year. Remember so I guess to wrap up the chart, remember your roots, go to the roots, get a community, find your community. Remember you can build wealth. If you're having trouble with that building wealth piece, it means you need to figure out your feelings and talk them through. And your mother wounds, all that. You need to dig down into all those pieces. Like Jan said, make a choice, get on the boat or get off the boat. Don't waffle.
Mm-hmm.
Dealing with a lot of relationship pieces this year and those affecting both physical health, financial health. So lots of self-love, lots of good boundaries. I think that's the chart. Anything else?
Yeah, and people might irritate you
Yes.
because you're near them in real life. That's okay. You will find your happy equilibrium.
Amen.
All right. Well, thanks so much for listening and let us know how your year has gone compared to how our predictions were last year. I'd love to hear about that. But until next week, see you around. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. Please make sure to give us a 5-star rating wherever you are listening and share with someone you know. See you next week.